Leicester.
Thank you very much, Steve. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and any other pronouns that happen to be out there. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, if you look on the programme, you'll see that I'm going to talk to you about pitchfork politics. I have got 100 pitchforks in Steve's car. We're going to go out there, pick one up each, and we're going to march on Westminster. But not really. This is my sort of concept. The more pitchfork lengths you are away from your political masters, the less they care about you. They want you not at arm's length, not at pitchfork length, they want you miles away. Hence the European Union. And we all know about that, and we all know the dangers of that sort of situation. In actual fact, when you look at it in more depth, you find out that the government here was agreeing with everything the EU did by going through the Council of Ministers through the back door, getting the Parliament to vote it through, but it was their Council of Ministers. It was the PM sending the minister there to give that message, and then they go, oh, it's nothing to do with us, that's the European Union. And that's what I mean about pitchforks. They put all those pitchfork lengths between you and their decision, which actually was taking place in Westminster at the time. They just don't care about you. Now, this pitchfork thing came to mind a few weeks ago, and that was before the farmers took off. Now talk about pitchfork politics. They are showing you exactly what happens when pitchfork politics takes hold, aren't they? They really are. And they're there, and there's one in London on the 25th, Monday the 25th of this month. I'm going there and I'm going to take a big sort of sou'wester with me because I'm hoping they're going to spray a lot of stuff around. That would be quite nice. But anyway, the things I want to talk to you about is how they put distance between them and you is by saying, oh, it's their fault, not ours. Nothing to do with us. The ECHR, run by the Council of Europe, separate to the EU, it's completely separate, except they have the same flag, the same anthem, and they use the same buildings. So they're completely separate. Anyway, the ECHR is run from there. Now, all the EU member states are members of the ECHR, signed up to the Human Rights Convention, all hunky-dory, so are we. And when we signed the Trade and Cooperation Agreement for Brexit, we agreed we must stay. There is one big flaw here. There is one organisation that is not part of the ECHR and not signed up to it. The European Union itself. It said in the Lisbon Treaty, which was signed off in 2009, came into force 2010 or whatever, that the EU as a body, Brussels and all the institutions, would become part of the ECHR and be bound by the human rights laws. It hasn't done so. How long ago was that? 14 years. And in 2014, the European Court of Justice said, we can't actually do that because then the ECHR would overrule the ECJ, and we can't have that. Can't have that. European Union sovereignty is more important. And the ECHR itself, the lawyers in there say that at the moment, because we're outside the EU, we have more human rights under the ECHR, if you want to call it that, than the European Union citizens have. That's what they say. And we're in this ridiculous situation. But the whole point about us not leaving the ECHR, when we could, if we wanted to, is it puts loads of pitchfork lengths between Westminster and us. Because when we put someone on an aeroplane to deport them, and it gets stuck on the ground because an ECHR judge in the middle of the night signs something, and how people go, oh, international law, we have to obey this international law, mustn't we? And we even think it was a Russian judge who was still there after Russia had been forced out of the ECHR, by the way. They'd already been left, they'd already gone. So we have this situation where this ECHR judge, in the middle of the night, can stop a whole plane taking off to take people to Rwanda. Do you remember that? Yeah. Yes, you'll remember that. Now, the government are saying, nothing to do with us. That was the ECHR. I will not let the ECHR, a foreign court, ever blah, 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 blah. They ain't going to get rid of it, ladies and gentlemen. They're not. No one, not a hope in hell And Labour probably signed us up to it twice anyway. Now the next one, so what's the answer? What's the answer? Leave the ECHR. Yes, that's it. We just leave and we do our own thing. We can protect our own human rights far better than a foreign court can, because it takes into account our rights, not everybody else's on the planet. Anyway, moving on, the next one is very topical as well. The pandemic's just happened, doesn't it? Big fallout, lots of excess deaths that no one wants to talk about, yeah? Ooh. And then we've got all this sort of play on how are we going to investigate it. We're going to have an inquiry into it, so we're holding an inquiry. The inquiry decision was made before it started. More lockdowns, harder, faster. Now, the way to do that is, of course, to make it very acceptable for you to be locked down again, even though you don't want to be. The decision has to come from outside the UK. Hence the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty, which we will sign up to, because our government, our politicians do not want to be accountable. They do not want to be the ones that when another pandemic hits, 1 million people might or might not die. They might actually end up accountable for lots of deaths or not. They're not going to take that chance. Hand it over to the WHO, loads of pitchfork lengths between them and you. But the trouble is, they're making that decision to do that. So we should hold them accountable for that. And what's the answer to that problem? We do not sign the WHO treaty. You get the idea. These politicians like signing these international agreements. What's the other big one? Net zero. Now, did you know that there is a net zero non-regression clause inside the Trade and Cooperation Agreement we signed with the EU? There's a non-regression clause in there. 2050 is binding. The only way to walk out of this is to break all these international COP treaties, the TCA, everything, and walk back on it. You see what they've done again? Pitchfork length. They made the decision, but they put all these pitchfork lengths between you and them. We need to remove those pitchfork lengths down to 1, or in this case, half, if you get my drift. So what I'm trying to say to you is these people, these politicians, I'm going to, Nicola Sturgeon, hold me accountable for education. 10 years later, don't hold me to account for education. You see what I mean? They play the game. They're there for money, for themselves, a bit of power. And I think that quite a few do go there for the right reasons. They want to help. By the time they've been Westminsterised, the whip's got hold of them, you say this and not what you think, it all sort of turns to a pot mess. It's just terrible. And right now we have a problem with a certain demographic, and their decisions, their policies caused it. I did a video yesterday, or day before, whenever, and I said in it that Michael Gove was forced to go to the House of Commons to define extremism. For one reason and one reason only: government policy of open borders without integration. In fact, the integration is not only not done, it's frowned upon. Multiculturalism does not allow integration. That's the whole thing. And the only reason they have to define this is because they made the policies. Everybody before 1950 knew what extremism was. They know what extremism is. But now we have to keep defining it. How much more Britishness are we going to have to define in law to protect ourselves in the future, when integration and slow immigration would have blown that out of the water? We would not need half the laws we've got without that. So all I can say to you is we have to maintain one pitchfork length between us and them, us and our elected masters. They've got to feel like the lord of the manor when he gets a bit overtaxing, and suddenly all the farmers turn up, didn't they, with their pitchforks to sort him out. So they've got to feel, they've got to fear us. We're now afraid of them. That's not right. Pitchfork politics must return. They must be frightened of us. We must not be frightened of them, ever. There you go.
Thank you.